just a few days ago, I was actually invited to take part in a ceremony using plant medicines. Now, if you're not familiar with what plant medicines are, they're medicines that were used traditionally by indigenous tribes especially over thousands of years ago to evoke a type of experience, usually used by shamans or religious healers. Now, I've done some work like this before. In fact, I went down to Colombia into the Amazon, into the jungles there. It's the northern part, and I worked with a female shaman for over a week. And it was an amazing experience, and I'd be happy to tell you about that at some point. But here I was going for a similar experience. Now, if you've ever done this before, you know how difficult this work is. It really rips you apart inside, right? People don't get hurt, at least not that I'm aware of. But it really makes you an introspective, usually introspective type work, healing yourself and opening you up to new realms of possibility. Now, typically when you look at this, when I showed up, I was getting ready to go and I'm dressed in all white because that's the reflective color, just being respectful to this particular practice and making sure that, I paid my respects as I was invited to come through this. And I was very, very fortunate to be able to do this exercise and going through these plant medicines. So I showed up and all of a sudden everything in my body was like, get out of here, don't do this. Again, it's one of the hardest experiences I've ever been through personally. It literally stops time and prevents you from lying to yourself and really makes you look at your life in a whole new perspective. Almost like if you can imagine having a map. Now, if you remember the maps from back in the day for sailors, map makers would literally draw a dragon on different parts of the map, usually towards the edges, to say, hey, don't go here. There's danger here, right? This is unknown territory. Don't go. And so most people would avoid it. Now, there are a few sailors who saw these dragons as opportunities that most people wouldn't venture into, and therefore that's where the gold would lie, right? That's where people wouldn't be going, and that's where all the riches would find. Well, I found the same thing to be true for me and with personal development. Now, I've been lucky enough to coach some of the most successful people in the world, and I still do today, and I absolutely love it, as well as coaching people through our Author of Your Own Story University. So if you haven't checked it out, go over there. But for me, I was sitting outside in my car and nervous as heck. And then I remembered the map makers and I remembered the dragons. I remembered what I got from my last experience. Now, it was, again, the hardest work I've done. I've traveled the world. I've done meditation retreats. I've swam with sharks without a cage. I've done a lot of crazy things in my life. Been to Mount Everest, just crazy stuff. But the plant medicines were definitely the hardest journey I've ever been on. So knowing that I was going back into it, I saw dragons all over my personal map of how I was viewing this experience, this world that I was stepping myself into. And that's when I remembered to always slay a dragon. Now, obviously you want to make sure that this is an educated choice. But what was happening for me is fear was coming up, right? I was afraid. I was timid. What's going to happen? I don't know. Last time I did this, you get sick and then you break to the other side. And when you break to the other side, it really forces you to look at some very hard aspects of your life. And it's really tough. And so it was at that moment that I realized that it was a dragon before me, a dragon on my mental map that I had to slay. I got out of the car, shut the door, and went right in to the ceremony. And I'm so glad that I did. Such amazing breakthroughs and really reminders of the path that I want to be on, which is a path of sharing my gifts and really helping people live their ideal world. And that's why we came up with the Author of Your Own Story concept, is I want to help you. I'm able to coach high-end clients, and frankly, they can afford it to have one-on-one laser-like coaching, and not everybody can. And that's why we have these daily growth hacks and also the Author of Your Own Story University. But more importantly, what I want you to do is grab your journal, write out your 5 to thrive. And where in your 5 to thrive do you have a dragon that needs to be slayed? For some of us, it's in our body. We say, hey, you know what? It's too dangerous. Swinging a mace and doing kettlebells, I'm in my 40s and 50s. I can't do that. I heard that just the other day. Yet here I am. I'm actually training with somebody to use a mace, an exercise mace and kettlebell training. I did kettlebell training today, right? So these are dragons that can be slayed. So what one person's version of impossible or a dragon is another person's opportunity. The key here is finding out what your dragons are, right? We're each on our own journey. That's why it's Author of Your Own Story, not mine or ours. It's your story. So where are your dragons? Where's your map in your 5 to Thrive? Is it in your mind? I've shared previously that I had a client of mine I was working one-on-one with who's an extremely intelligent man, businessman, very successful. But his story was that he was stupid. And therefore, he just didn't read, right? Then after clearing up that dragon, after slaying it like an opportunity, he actually fell in love with reading and books. Now, I've had clients all over the board that have different dragons. We all have our own. Their own stories, our own maps of the world. The very, very important thing that you want to do now is identify where your dragons are on your personal map by starting to list out your 5 to Thrive and write them down. What's holding you back? What are you seeing as a perceived threat or danger? That probably isn't. And the next step is take action, right? Immediately go after that dragon and slay it right away. So the first thing you can do is once you've done your 5 to Thrive, identify the dragon. And then what's the next step you can do on your journey to get closer to slaying that dragon? Immediate action. So you never want to leave a site of decision without taking immediate action, massive action if you can. And that's what I want you to do. In fact, I would love to hear what you think your dragons are over in the Author of Your Own Story community. Of course, if you're on the newsletter, just hit reply. I get all those emails, and just let me know if you don't feel comfortable sharing that. I would love to hear what your dragons are, and I'll share some of mine, and I'll share my experience with plant medicines that I've had all over the world. I'm happy to. Also, before you go, share this with at least 3 people so you can have conversations that matter around you. Build your tribe. This is how you get to the next level on your journey to being the author of your own story. That's it for me today. I will see you tomorrow. Remember, go out and slay those dragons and be the author of your own story.
I have a question for you. What if you could transform your life for the better in just 90 days? Would you do it? Our 90-Day Game is an online program and community created for people like you who are ready to make a shift and take those dreams and goals they've been talking about for years and turn them into a reality within 90 days. Go to authorofyourownstory.com/90-day-game and turn your goals into reality. And don't forget to be the author of your own story.